Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at a pro team and thought, well, they all grew up in a studio. They've probably been dancing since they were 5. Or maybe you thought, I don't look like anyone on their roster. My body isn't like theirs. And quietly, you started convincing yourself you don't belong in that room. If that's you, today is going to change everything, because we're breaking down 2 of the most common myths that keep talented dancers out of auditions before they even try. Hey there, beautiful soul. I'm Sadie, Community Director for Sideline Prep, and welcome back to our Audition Mythbusters series, where we're exposing the truth behind what dancers think matter versus what actually gets you on the team. And don't forget, I created a complete free downloadable guide called 10 audition myths that are holding you back and what actually gets you on the team. It includes everything we're talking about in this series, plus action steps you can implement immediately. You can grab it by using the link in our description below, or go ahead and scan that QR code. All right, let's get into myth number 3. Myth number 3 is you need years of studio training to go pro, when reality is you need clean basics, showmanship, personality, and performance, not a 15-year dance resume. So let's clear something up right away. Studio training is valuable. It builds foundation, it builds discipline, it builds awareness. But here's the problem. Somewhere along the way, dancers started believing that if you didn't start at the age of 5, if you didn't compete, if you didn't grow up in conventions, that you don't belong. And that is simply not true. What teams actually care about is when directors are evaluating dancers, they're not asking, how long has she been dancing? They're asking, can she retain the choreography quickly? Does he perform like he belongs here? I have personally seen dancers with very minimal formal training, late starts, non-traditional dance backgrounds make teams over the lifelong studio dancers. Why? Because pro cheer is not about being the most technically advanced dancer in the room. It's about being the most complete candidate in the room. And here's something most people won't say out loud. Studio training can sometimes become a crutch. And some studio dancers rely so heavily on their ballet postures, overlifted arms, stylized contemporary faces, these perfect pirouettes, and then they struggle to adjust to the pro style, because pro cheer requires attack, speed, sharpness, big facials, more power, more personality, and sometimes the dancer who has 12 years of training has to unlearn these habits. Meanwhile, the dancer who has 2 years of focused pro style prep adapts so much faster. So if you didn't grow up in a studio, that's not a disadvantage. It just means that you need intentional training now. So let's shift that mindset. Instead of saying, I didn't grow up dancing, I want you to say, I'm training strategically for this style. And instead of focusing on what you didn't have, I want you to focus on what you can build now. Clean arms, strong kicks, controlled turns, because clean execution beats the fancy tricks every single time. What I want you to start doing is film yourself doing pro style choreography weekly and train the basics over the tricks. And then I want you to take some performance classes. You don't need a childhood resume, you need focused preparation. And so now let's move on to the second myth, and this one really hits deep. So myth number 4 is you have to look like someone else on the team. Reality is teams intentionally select dancers with different looks, strengths, and personalities. This myth keeps dancers from even showing up, because they scroll through the roster and think, I don't look like them, I'm too tall, I'm too short, and they quietly eliminate themselves. But here's the truth. Teams do not want clones, okay? They build a roster intentionally. Directors think like producers sometimes, where directors are building a brand, a visual aesthetic, a community representation, a balanced formation, a marketable team. They want diversity in height, in body type. If every dancer looked identical, the team would look just like that. And directors know that. So the difference between matching and meeting the standards, I want to clarify something very important. You do not need to look identical to the roster, but what you do need is to meet the standard. And that means polished glam, intentional hair, flattering outfits. And yes, we absolutely recommend researching the team's look. Find someone on the roster who resembles you in some way. And I want you to study how they style themselves, not copy them, but to understand the brand. This gives you a guideline, not a limitation. And so this is the part that dancers always forget. Once you make a team, they refine you, okay? They guide you on hair color, makeup palette, game day glam. You don't have to be the finished product at auditions. You have to be coachable, polished, confident, and aligned with their standards. Your uniqueness is not a liability, it's an asset. So what judges actually notice? They remember the dancers who stand out in a good way. They feel confident in their own skin. They perform without shrinking. Confidence reads louder than similarity. The insecurity reads louder than imperfection. And so what I want you to start doing is research the team's aesthetic. Find a roster member that has similarities and use them as a guide. That way you can start practicing their game day look. So let's recap. You don't need a 15-year dance resume to look like someone else or to fit into someone else's mold. What you do need is intentional training, polish, performance, confidence, and presentation. And if you want all 10 myths in one place with some action steps, go ahead and download our free guide. And I want you to comment, did you grow up in a studio or are you building your foundation now? And what part of your look are you learning to embrace? Let's talk about it, because I'm a studio trained dancer, but like I said in video 1, I've got cut in a lot. So if this episode had something for you, make sure to subscribe and share it with a dancer who needs to hear this. Be sure to come back and watch the rest of our series. On behalf of Sideline Prep and all of our Pro Cheer coaches, we wish you success in all that you do. Make it a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.